Before we crack open tonight's cursed can of content, I just want to say a big thank you to all our subscribers, and an extra sinister shout out to the loyal members of the Sinister Elite. You legends help keep the darkness alive. If you're enjoying the stories and want to take it a step further, hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and consider joining the Sinister Elite by clicking that join button below. Members get access to creepy custom emojis and exclusive Sinister Elite badges that level up the longer you survive with us. It's like loyalty, but spookier. All right, lights off, headphones in, and let's summon something we'll all regret. They told me the tunnels were for storm drains and electrical lines. That was the lie you tell to donors and school tours. What lives under Hargrove City Zoo isn't a storm, and it sure as hell isn't electricity. It's hunger wearing a shape it hates. I took the job because night work pays better, and I don't mind silence. I mop, I haul, I check gauges. The zoo above sleeps. Lions folded into gold shadows, giraffes kneeling like broken cranes, flamingos standing on stilts of toothpick legs. Below, the tunnels sweat. The concrete perspires with a night breath that smells like coins and wet dog. There are signs where the public never goes, metal plaques bolted into brick at every steel door. Do not run, do not hum, do not say its name. They don't write the rules anywhere else. You memorize them during orientation with a man whose eyes look like they've seen fires in mirrors. His name is Mateo. He gripped my sleeve and said, "You follow the rules, you go home. You improvise down here, you go missing." The rules are simple and awful. Feed it only what comes up from the old tunnels. Never show it a light brighter than your torch. Don't look into the fourth branch. If the wind stops, close your eyes. If it speaks, answer with a question. Never bleed on the rails. Whistle only if you want company. If you feel a second heartbeat, leave the bucket and walk away. I laughed at number 5 until Mateo didn't. My first shift began at 11:57 p.m. The zoo above was a diorama. Gift shop dark, ticket booths muzzled in steel shutters, carousel horses frozen mid-prance like they'd been shot. The service elevator groaned me down past the boiler level, past the water treatment pumps, into the city's forgotten ribs. You can smell history down there. Rats had tagged the concrete with their own handwriting, and something older had crossed out the sentences with long, dragging nails. I had a key ring the size of a jaw. My flashlight made a shy cone. The main corridor was arched brick from a century ago, damp as a tongue. Buried under the zoo is an older zoo, they say. Before fences, this city kept monsters in cages for the thrill of it. When the cages didn't work, they poured concrete over the mistake and built again. That's the rumor. The truth stands behind door C4. You don't open door C4. The hatch has 3 deadbolts and a green wheel valve that leaks the smell of copper pennies. A rail runs to it, a rusted track that used to carry something heavier than feed buckets. The rails hum at odd times. Never when trains pass up top, but when a cloud crosses the moon. At midnight, I pushed my cart to the distribution junction. The cart squeaked like a reprimand. Attached to the wall, a chute labeled tunnel scraping. The chute coughs up slurry in black gulps, bones polished smooth, meat in strips like red flags, slick bundles of organs bound with twine. It doesn't come from us. That's rule 1. We don't feed it animals from the surface. It gets what the tunnels provide, like the city pays a tithe from some deeper kingdom. The first bucket weighed like an apology. I lifted the lid, and steam peeled away in sheets. The smell punched me. Sour iron and something floral, like lilies rotting in a hot room. I hooked the bucket onto the rail trolley and nudged it toward the dark. The rails go downhill. They lead to a cul-de-sac of shadow where the 4th branch yawns. There are 5 branches, numbered in brass. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 4th is a mouth that's learned geometry. You do not look into it. You glance past, the way you glance past strangers crying in public. 3 buckets, then 4. The tunnel listened. When it moves, the air changes pressure. My eardrums dipped and popped. The torchlight made flat coins on wet brick, and behind the coins, something pressed close, exaggerating my shadow like a puppet master testing strings. Rule 4. If the wind stops, close your eyes. I felt the draft die like a candle pinched. My lids shut on reflex. In darkness, the tunnel's heartbeat replaced mine. It thumped behind the wall, in the floor, in my teeth. I counted to 8. Mateo taught me that. When I opened my eyes, the bucket was empty, and the lid lay dented like a bitten coin. It's shy with new voices, Mateo had said. It hates the big lamps. Your torch is polite. Keep it that way. I sent 2 more buckets. The trolley squealed. The empty came back faster, the lid rattling. There were scratch marks on the metal now, 4 parallel rakes, then a 5th that wobbled like a drunk signature. I told myself it was just a big cat. That lie kept my hands from shaking while I logged temperatures at the coolant lines. This place runs cold to keep the tunnels slow. If it warms, the bricks remember a shape they want to relax into. I signed my initials, closed the ledger, and that's when I heard the voice. You're late. Every muscle in me tried to run. Rule 5. If it speaks, answer with a question. Am I? I said, tongue wooden. Hungry clock, it said, and the words came across the bricks as if a mouth were pressed to the wall inches from my ear. Hungry hands. Who feeds me? What do you prefer? I asked. My breath fogged. The torch guttered and steadied. Prefer? It attempted the word like testing a tooth. Something big dragged across the far end of the tunnel. Nails. No, not nails. Claws that learned to be nails. Prefer light that does not burn. Prefer meat that remembers being afraid. The 5th bucket was heavier. It pulsed, barely, against the lid. Whoever sends the offerings knows what it likes. I should have left it on the trolley and walked away. Instead, I hesitated. The lid shivered. A sound like a dog whining bled through the metal, a wet, pleading squeal. My hand tightened on the handle until my knuckles felt hollow. From the 4th branch, a draft crawled out. It smelled like winter ground split by a shovel. My torch dimmed as if the air drank it. Behind me, a new sound. The soft, wet pop of suction unsticking, and then a sigh that made the torch's beam braid. You know when you're in a room and you think someone else is about to speak? The air leans toward your mouth. The tunnel did that. It leaned at my teeth. Late, it said again, closer. Late means you looked. I kept my eyes on the brass number 4 without actually seeing it. Looked at what? The answer came as a question, a child's voice borrowed by something that had never been young. Do you want me to show you? I pushed the bucket with both hands. It rattled away into the mouth of geometry, into the part of the world that hungers in a shape it hates. The rails shivered. The lid stuttered. The squeal inside cut off. Good, it said, and a second heartbeat woke under my breastbone. Not mine. Rule 8. I let go of the cart and walked away without running, without humming, without saying its name. I didn't sleep after shift 1. I lay on my couch listening for a second heartbeat in my chest like a stowaway knocking from inside a trunk. It faded by dawn, leaving a bruise bloom ache behind my sternum. When I finally dozed, I dreamed about numbers. Not math, house numbers, locker numbers, brass 4s everywhere, all of them placed on doors that shouldn't exist. Mateo met me in the corridor before my second night with a roll of black tape and a look that made apologies unnecessary. He wrapped my fingers one by one, tight enough to pinch. Skin splits down here when the air gets greedy, he said. You don't bleed on the rails. Because it follows smell? I asked, pretending I hadn't felt it lean at my teeth. He didn't answer that. He pointed to the taped knuckles. Because the rails remember where blood went. The zoo above was its usual taxidermy theater. Night chuffs from the lion enclosure sounded like someone quietly shoveling coal. The carousel's mirrored center still held daylight in a warped coin the sun forgot to collect. When the elevator gates shut, It felt like I was choosing the basement in a fire drill. At the junction, the chute coughed up its tithe. 3 buckets fast, then a pause long enough to make me wonder what the city was negotiating with the dark. The smell tonight was worse. Less coin, more cold copper wire bitten in half. Steam smeared the beam of my torch. I latched a bucket, sent it down the rails. The dented lid ticked like cooling metal. In the distance, something soft and thumped against brick. You know the sound a large dog makes when it drops to its elbows to wait for a thrown ball. That, but damp. I logged coolant temps, checked valve pressures, did my best impression of a man doing a normal job. The ledger had an old stain on the bottom right corner like a brown galaxy. I realized it was a fingerprint and had to look away. Mateo arrived an hour after midnight with a satchel and a breath that steamed in an unwavering column. He didn't go near branch 4. He kept to the 3rd, pressed his palm to the bricks like a priest feeling for heat behind a door. "Quiet," he said, which in that place sounded like hope and warning at once. He handed me a laminated card. Blue Path Protocol. If the rail trolley returns with the lid still on, do not remove it. If the bucket returns heavier, evacuate. If the lights fail, face the wall, touch your tongue to your teeth, and count your breaths. If it sings, swallow. None of these rules had been in my orientation. "What's Blue Path?" I asked. "Breach adjacent," he said. "Not a full breach. The tunnels test the locks. We pretend we don't notice." We sent the 2nd bucket. I kept my eyes away from the brass 4, but the number found me in reflections, in the wet shine of brick, in the round black mirror of a puddle that hadn't been there a moment ago. The air pressure sagged. The wind died. Rule 4. My eyes shut before thought could argue. I touched my tongue to my teeth. Someone else counted with me inside my mouth. 8. When I opened my eyes, the bucket was gone. The lid scudded back alone, edges frilled with frost like the metal had been dipped in a winter that didn't belong to tonight. Mateo crouched, frowning at the crystallized lip. "Colder?" he said. "Good or bad?" "Cold means it's sleeping," he said. Then, lower. Or learning. The 3rd bucket came back heavier. The trolley jerked like something on it had decided to grow. The lid was still pinned. No dent this time. No rattle. Just weight. Blue Path Rule 2 blared in my head. "Evacuate," I said. Mateo didn't move. He crouched, set his ear to the bucket, and after a second his mouth thinned. "It brought a piece back." He didn't sound surprised. He sounded tired. He palmed the latch with a rag, didn't lift the lid. "We send it home." "How do you send—" He pressed the bucket back onto the trolley and gave it a shove as gentle as putting a baby in a crib. The rails trilled. The shadows at the 4th branch thickened like syrup. The bucket slid out of sight. The tunnel spoke with my voice. "We're late," it said. Rule 5 cracked like ice in my head. If it speaks, answer with a question. "Are we?" I asked, and the echo came back wrong. Too many syllables bending as if the word had joints where it shouldn't. The air leaned forward again. The 2nd heartbeat pricked like static. "Hungry hands," it said, voice braided with mine and someone else's. "Who feeds me?" "Who sent you that bucket back?" I asked, because questions were shields, and because the alternative was to think about a hand inside the bucket testing the lid. "Hungry below," it murmured. "Hungry above. Do you want to trade?" Mateo's eyes snapped to mine. He shook his head once, small, urgent. "What kind of trade?" I said anyway, because curiosity is a muscle that thinks it's a brain. A smell rose that wasn't tunnel rot or blood. Lilies. The hot room funeral smell that had tagged last night's offering. The scent moved like a body with a purpose. It came from behind me. I turned, just enough to catch movement on the far wall. A new wet spot. Oblong. Blooming fast. From the center of that shine, something pressed out. Not pushing through the brick, pushing into it, shaping the wall's shine like a face printed in glass. A human profile gathered from reflected torchlight. Nose, lips, eye. It opened its mouth. My mouth opened too without my permission. Mateo slapped his palm flat over my lips. His hand was iron. "Don't show it your teeth," he whispered. "It thinks teeth are doors." The profile in the wall smiled without gums. The torch flickered low, the beam thinning to thread. Blue Path Rule 3. If the lights fail, face the wall, tongue to teeth, count. I turned, pressed my forehead to cold brick, felt the city shiver through it like a living animal sleeping beneath a plank floor. 1 breath. 2. The voice went soft and sibilant like tires on wet pavement. "Do you want me to show you?" it asked, the question from last night returning with a smaller voice braided through. Higher, childish. I thought of the flamingos above, the way they stand forever on one leg as if listening for something in the earth. I thought of the carousel mirrors. "Show me what?" I asked, because not asking is a kind of answer too, and answers are invitations. "Where the meat remembers being afraid." The torch steadied. The lily smell thinned. The wall face unprinted itself, features sliding back into wet brick like a hand leaving a steamed mirror. The rails hummed once. The empty trolley returned, lid upright and clean. No frost fringe, no dents, just the sound of metal that has been licked. Mateo exhaled as if he'd been holding his breath for a day. He reached into his satchel and pulled out a rag doll the size of a cat. Burlap, button eyes, a mouth stitched crooked. He set it on the floor facing branch 4 and stepped back. "This is for you," he said, dead flat. "Payment." The doll's head turned on thread. The stitched mouth tugged. The button eyes clicked inward as if something on the other side of the wall had pressed its face right up against the cloth. "Do not," Mateo said to me, looking not at me but at the number 4. "Under any circumstances, bring your name down here." "What do you call it?" My voice sounded small in the brick's throat. He swallowed. "We call it the guest." That night the wind didn't stop again. The heartbeat never quite synced to mine, but it hovered close, like a kid shadowing an adult's stride. When we finally rode the elevator up, my ears popped. I could smell lilies in my hair. At the service door, Mateo said, "Blue Path is going to become usual. The city's sending it something from deeper, something that doesn't know how to stay put. If the buckets keep coming back heavier, we stop feeding." "And then?" I asked. He looked toward the carousel, to the mirrors that still held a coin of day. "Then we learn whether the rules keep us alive or only keep it interested." On the way to my car, a lion coughed the way a man clears his throat before telling bad news. In the dark glass of the visitor center, my reflection lagged half a step behind. The next morning, I found claw marks on my car hood. Not scratches, marks, 3 inches deep, like something heavy had rested there long enough to melt the paint into rippled silver tears. No tracks on the ground, no cameras above the employee lot, just those 5 grooves, fanning outward like a signature. I called Mateo. He answered on the second ring with static crackling behind his voice, like wind blowing through rebar. "Don't mention it on site," he said. "Sometimes it follows smell, sometimes thought. Keep your windows open when you drive. It hates moving air." That night I almost quit. I even typed out the resignation email, stared at the blinking cursor after effective immediately. Then I remembered the clause in my contract, non-disclosure for 10 years. The zoo's legal department doesn't scare easy. Whatever's down there has lawyers. I went back. When the elevator dropped this time, the walls felt closer. The cage light buzzed like a wasp trapped in a jar. At the bottom, the tunnels were wetter. The floor gleamed, rippled, like the concrete had started to breathe. The chute gave me 5 buckets. 5. We'd never had more than 3. The smell was unbearable. Rot, salt, lilies again. I gagged, braced my hand against the wall. The wall pulsed under my palm, warm. There was a sound from deeper in, the 4th branch exhaling through teeth it didn't own. The first bucket went down the rail. The trolley disappeared around the bend. I didn't wait for it to come back. I fed the second, then the third. When the fourth bucket hit the turn, something knocked on the bricks beside me. Slow, measured, like a hand, the size of a shovel asking permission. "Mateo?" I called, but he wasn't there. The knocking stopped. Then came whispering. Two voices. One low, dragging syllables like chains. The other lighter, quicker, almost excited. The second one was mine. Rule 5 again. If it speaks, answer with a question. "What do you want?" The voice answered through my own mouth. "You're the one who keeps me fed. Don't you want to know what you've been feeding me?" The torch flickered blue. The concrete sweated cold mist. I stepped back until I hit the service ladder. A shadow crossed the light from nowhere. Broad shoulders, legs wrong in the joints. A body that bent too many times before it reached the floor. For a heartbeat, I saw it. Not all of it, just its face. It had no eyes, just empty sockets with a dim red glow pulsing inside, like coals under skin. Its mouth hung open, too wide, lips peeled back into a dog's grin full of wet glass teeth. And from the gap of its ribs, something moved. Hands. Human hands. Dozens of them, writhing where organs should be. They weren't struggling. They were reaching out, like worshippers praying from inside a cage of bone. I backed up until my spine hit steel. The torchlight wavered and the thing leaned forward into it, skin stretching like wax too close to heat. "Don't run," it said in that layered voice. "You'll make me chase." Rule 1. Feed it only what comes up from the old tunnels. I realized too late I hadn't sent the 5th bucket yet. The air shifted, the pressure dropping until my ears screamed. The trolley rolled back empty, fast enough to spark on the rails. The bucket hit my boots and spun. Inside was a shape about the size of a football, wrapped in slick black cloth. The cloth twitched. When I unwrapped it, stupid I know, I found something alive. A rat. Or what used to be one. It had no fur, no eyes, and its tail was a thin cord of bone. The thing twitched, opened its mouth, and a tiny human tooth fell out. My torch died. The dark felt thick, grainy, and moving. The wind was gone. Rule 4, close your eyes. I did. Something brushed my cheek like hair. Hot breath touched my ear. Then a whisper, clear, curious, almost gentle. "Late means you looked." A hand, cold and wet, tapped my chest. One tap for each heartbeat. When it stopped, the tunnel exhaled again, and the pressure snapped back. My light flared on by itself. The floor where I stood was dry. The bucket was gone. So was the rat. Mateo found me an hour later by the elevator, still shaking. He carried 2 buckets himself, lids clamped so tight the handles bent. His shirt was wet at the collar. "It's getting faster," he said. "The city sent word. More feeds coming." They said the lower sensors picked up movement. "Movement?" "From below," he said. Something else woke up. The walls groaned as if to agree. From far away, under all that concrete, something massive scraped itself against stone. Mateo stared toward branch 4. "If it starts speaking in your voice again," he said, "don't answer at all. Then what do I do?" He didn't blink. "Run for the ladder, and pray you never hear it say your name." That night, when I got home, my bathroom mirror was fogged, though the air was cold. In the condensation, something had been traced with a finger, a number 4, and below it the words, "Do not be late." I didn't go back the next night. I told myself I'd quit, call HR, tell them I'd seen black mold and bad wiring, anything that didn't sound like monster under the zoo. But at 10:13 p.m., my phone started vibrating across the kitchen counter. Caller ID, unknown tunnel line. I didn't even know the zoo had one. When I picked up, I heard dripping water, and underneath it, breathing. Wet, deliberate, human, but too slow. Then Mateo's voice, rough and shaking. "It's awake early. The wind won't move. You have to come back. Bring light." Then the line went dead. My truck smelled like lilies again. The zoo was dark when I arrived, not quiet. You could hear animals muttering in their sleep, short, jerky noises that didn't sound right. The lions weren't roaring. They were mewling like frightened cats. The elephants were pacing in slow circles, trunks dragging against metal. The elevator was already open. The light inside flickered red instead of yellow. The moment the doors closed, the cage dropped by itself, no buttons pressed. I tried to hit surface, but the panel didn't respond. It buzzed once and locked. When the doors opened, the tunnels had changed. The air was thicker, metallic, and every wall gleamed like it had been licked clean. The smell wasn't rot anymore. It was sweet, like syrup and copper mixed. And under it all, a sound, steady and deep. A heartbeat, but not mine. Mateo's flashlight beam wobbled down the corridor. He was kneeling by the rails, hands shaking so bad the light danced on the wall like it was alive. He looked up, eyes hollowed out. "Rule 7, he whispered. "Don't whistle unless you want company." "I didn't," I said. He pointed to the darkness beyond branch 4. "Then why do I hear it?" It started faint, just a tuneless breath pushed through lips that didn't know how to shape notes. Then a second whistle joined. Then a third. Coming closer. Echoing wrong. Mateo stood. The zoo pumps aren't running. The ventilation stopped. That means it's testing us. Testing. Learning, he corrected. It learns from what we fear. We sent the first bucket just to follow protocol. The trolley squealed, sparks flickering across wet rails. It vanished into the dark, swallowed in 2 seconds flat. The sound that came back wasn't chewing. It was laughing. The rails shook. Something enormous moved on the other side. The second bucket came back uphill. It rolled backward, metal grinding against concrete, slow but deliberate, like it was being pushed. The lid popped off. Inside was a mass of hair. Blonde, brown, black, all tangled. And between the strands, pieces of faces, noses, lips, eyelids, some still blinking. Mateo gagged. "It's sending us what it doesn't want." A gust hit us, hot and foul, the smell of wet bone and burning fur. My flashlight blew out, replaced by red light leaking from the 4th tunnel. In the glow, I saw it crawling toward us. Its limbs were too long, bending backward at the knees. Its body rippled like fabric stretched over meat that kept rearranging itself. When it stopped, I realized why its chest looked strange. It was covered in hands. Dozens of them, pressed flat against its ribs, pushing from the inside like people trapped in it were still trying to claw out. The head tilted wrong, teeth unfolded like knives. Mateo whispered, "Don't run." Then it spoke with a voice that wasn't one. It was hundreds of voices layered in whispers, screams, sobs, all saying my name. Eli. My knees went soft. My name didn't sound human in its mouth. It came out backwards, wet and chewing. "Rule 6, Mateo hissed. "Never bleed on the rails." He reached for me just as the creature lunged. I fell sideways, scraping my hand on the concrete. The cut was small, but blood splattered across the track. The beast stopped, sniffed. Its head jerked like a hunting dog. The air rippled, and the rails lit up red. "Run!" Mateo yelled. "Now!" We sprinted for the ladder. Behind us, metal screamed as the rails twisted upward, the tunnel convulsing like it was alive. My flashlight flickered enough for me to see it tearing through the concrete, dragging its body by the walls like a centipede. It didn't run. It flowed. Its body bent like liquid shadow, chasing the smell of my blood. "Faster!" Mateo shouted, shoving me ahead. "It can't climb if the lights are on." I reached the ladder first, boots slipping on the wet rung. Mateo was a few steps behind when the air pressure snapped again. The wind stopped. Rule 4. "Don't close your eyes," he said. "Not now. If you can't see it, it..." His words drowned in a wet crunch. I turned. The thing had him halfway in its mouth. His legs kicked once, then stilled. The hands on its chest reached out, pulling him deeper, fingers threading through his hair like they were helping. For a second, just before the creature swallowed him whole, Mateo looked at me, and I swear he smiled. The torch clattered from my grip. The light hit his badge. It reflected off the plastic right before the darkness took him. Then the tunnel whispered, in my own voice, "Late means you looked." I climbed until my arms screamed, until the tunnel shrank to a pinhole below me. The elevator door wouldn't open. I slammed it with both fists until my knuckles split. The smell of lilies rose again. The door finally slid apart. And when I stumbled into the maintenance hallway, dripping with sweat and blood, I realized the zoo above wasn't quiet anymore. The animals were screaming. When the elevator opened, the zoo above sounded wrong. Not chaotic, coordinated. Every cage rattled in rhythm, every animal screaming in a pitch that harmonized into something that almost sounded like a word. I staggered out, ears ringing, blood on my hands, the metallic scent coating my throat. The air outside the service hall was cold, but it didn't smell like Kansas night air anymore. It smelled like the tunnels, wet concrete and lilies. Half the lights across the zoo grounds flickered between yellow and a dull red pulse that matched my heartbeat. The carousel was turning by itself. No music, just the hum of the motor grinding out a funeral rhythm. And every mirror on it, every one of those warped silver plates, showed me. Dozens of me, each reflection lagging behind by a second. I took a step closer. All the reflections smiled. The radio on my belt crackled. Mateo's voice bled through, thick with static. Rule 8. My hand froze. If you feel a second heartbeat, leave the bucket and walk away. I pressed the call button. Mateo? You're dead. I saw. Leave it. The radio hissed, then cut. My chest thumped twice. 2 heartbeats. I pressed my palm to my shirt. It wasn't my pulse. It was deeper. Lower. Like something underneath my ribs was knocking to get out. The zoo's emergency lights flicked again. Red washed across the paths, painting the cages like open mouths. I moved toward the lion enclosure. Empty. The gates were bent outward, bars twisted like soft clay. A trail of paw prints led into the courtyard, but the prints weren't paws anymore. They stretched, human-shaped, each one larger than the last. The monkeys were gone. The glass around the reptile house was shattered inward, not outward, and the air inside was cold enough to frost the grass. Whatever lived beneath the zoo wasn't in the tunnels anymore. It was spreading. At the main gate, I found the first body, a night guard, his flashlight still on, his face completely gone, just smooth skin where features used to be. His badge dangled from his neck. Hargrove City Zoo. Security. The red light above the entrance flickered once, then steadied. I looked up. Every animal banner hanging along the walkway, the tigers, the giraffes, the bears, had changed. The eyes were wrong. They were mine. Hundreds of them. I ran. Through the courtyard, past the flamingo pond, across the bridge that led toward the reptile exhibit. Every step echoed like the tunnels were following me, chasing with the rhythm of 2 heartbeats. Something wet dripped from the lampposts. Not rain. Blood. Thin. Bright. Still warm. And then I heard it. That voice. The one from the wall. The whisper that used to sound far away. Only this time, it wasn't below me. It was behind me. "Hungry clock," it breathed. "Hungry hands. You've been such a good feeder I didn't turn. Rule 4. When the wind stops, close your eyes." The air went still. I closed them. A soft laugh rippled right against my ear. "Show me what fear tastes like." Something cold touched my wrist. It felt like a fingertip made of smoke. Then another. Then dozens. The sensation crawled up my arm, like wet ivy wrapping around my bones. The second heartbeat thudded so hard it blurred my vision even through closed eyes. Then, a crack. Pain like lightning hit my chest. The skin over my heart split open. Not deep, but enough to let air in. A small breath escaped me, but it wasn't mine. It exhaled through me. And from the wound, I heard whispering. Tiny, begging voices. Dozens of them. All saying one word. Feed. I screamed and ran blindly toward the parking lot. My hand hit metal. My truck. I slammed the door, twisted the key. The headlights flared to life. And there it was. Standing by the gate. The beast. Every inch of it dripped with night. Its body stretched taller than the giraffe enclosure, its hands dragging long trails of shadow across the ground. Faces moved beneath its skin like trapped moths under cellophane, human, animal, all whispering in unison. Its head tilted as the light hit it, and from the hollow of its chest, Mateo's face looked out. "Late means you looked," it said, smiling through his torn lips. "Now it's your turn to feed." The car engine roared, but the headlights dimmed. The bulbs turned red. The reflection on the windshield wasn't me anymore. It was it. Mouth opening wider and wider until the glass spiderwebbed and burst inward. The world folded into sound. Screaming animals, tearing metal, my own voice yelling, "Stop!" though there was nothing left to stop. And then, silence. They found my truck 2 days later in the visitor lot, doors open, headlights still red. No sign of me. The zoo reopened after maintenance, the tunnels were sealed. But sometimes on windless nights, the ground near the flamingo pond hums softly, like the rhythm of two hearts beating in unison. And under the new signage, "Welcome to Hargrove City Zoo," someone keeps carving 3 words into the fresh paint. "Do not be late."